Welcome back to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes. It's Wednesday, and I'm joined once again. We've got the band back together, John. It's yourself and Patrick McGilp. He's returned.
It's good to see him. As I say, we always need a pipping boy. Good to have Patrick back.
You've been away for a couple of weeks now. Talking of being away, Brendan Rodgers has been away since February 2019 in terms of Celtic Park dugouts. He was back last night. Was there any apprehension, Patrick, around the reception he was going to get for you?
I think there is a bit. I think, the majority are maybe not happy to have him back, but, content that we've got quite a good manager. Not going to give him any stick, clap him if, the reception is, as he did at kick-off, take in the applause of the crowd. But it was a warm reception, no trouble from what I could see or hear. And as you say, it's been February 2019, that sort of relatively controversial Motherwell game. I think we won 4-1 that day, and they scored a pretty dodgy goal. But a sort of shaky first half. Less said about that the better. But a brilliant second half and a brilliant night for Jamesy.
We did say that last night. It was a game of two halves. John, moving into it, there was a little bit of apprehension because we've seen this is what social media gives you. It gives you a cross-section of opinion and reaction to his appointment as Celtic manager. Going into it back on home soil, did you think there was going to be any issue? That obviously was an issue, which we'll talk about in relation to some fans who didn't go to the game, but I don't think that was about Brendan, was it?
Well, first of all, I had no apprehension at all. I thought that was all done. I wasn't even thinking about it, to be fair. I didn't see anyone suggesting it or mention it, and I don't see what the point is at this stage. He's not kicked a ball yet, or he's not. He's been in charge of he's not been in charge of a real proper competitive game. So, it's a bit early to be giving him any sort of stick. So I thought it was done and dusted. I know there was guys that didn't go to the game. I haven't seen any official statements saying why that was. So I did look to see, because I saw other people saying it was a protest. I did look to see, but I didn't. There was nothing official there. So as far as I know, there's just a section of guys that didn't go to the game. So people are entitled to go to games or not. Plenty of people wouldn't have been able to make it to a testimonial, especially, the cost of living crisis, all that sort of thing. People are struggling. So going to an additional game, I thought that was a tremendous turnout for a testimonial, to be honest with you. Mm-hmm. I thought he did very, very well. I thought it was a real show of respect for Jamesy, and well-deserved show of respect, because he's a proper Celtic man. So it was good to see. I'd be disappointed now if it turns out that those absences were in protest at the manager, because I suppose the argument would be, if you protest, then you're protesting at a competitive game, which is worse. But again, James deserved everyone's respect there. So I think better to be absent than turn up and protest vocally and turn it into something else entirely. So maybe they felt that was the best option. Mm-hmm. But as I say, I just, to me, any protest at this point is pointless. It's done. It's dusted. The choice has been made. He's not going anywhere. So, whether you like him or not, it's irrelevant. He's a manager, and we need to suck it up and go on with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I was interested to hear Brendan's comments post-match. He spoke about a need to prove myself and win again. And I like that, Patrick, because, there's been loads of things said around Brendan Rodgers, his approach, the ego, the reasons behind him leaving, mercenary. We've heard it all. And he was talking quite honestly about his feelings towards a Celtic supporter, that feeling of the homecoming, coming back to the park. He was going on about, I've managed some big clubs, but the feeling's never been the same as it is here. And what I was really pleased about was the fact that he's not resting on past successes, is he? He really wants to move forward, push forward, and continue with the success and get better.
Yeah, and those are the two messages that he keeps on sort of conveying in all his interviews. When he came and done the press conference, middle to late June when he first arrived. He was quite keen to stay, both professionally and personally. It was one of the happiest times of his life. His family were really happy in Glasgow. He obviously had a great affinity with the supporters in his first spell, had a lot of great success in his first spell, but also quite keen to state that, that's what's done is done. It was, if you look at the squad, in terms of players, it was so long ago that there's only 5 guys in the current squad that made appearances in Brendan's last reign. And I think he only signed one of them. The other 4 came through the academy. So, what's done is done. It was 4.5 years ago. And, it's a different challenge now. We know we've got Champions League football. We're coming off the back of a treble. You could say he's facing a slightly more consistent domestic challenge. Our rivals were in a bit of a tough place when he first arrived, and I mean they ultimately got better. And I still think we're streets ahead of them, to be honest. But the rest of the Scottish League out with maybe Aberdeen and Hearts are pretty shoddy, and therefore other teams can mount title challenges without actually being that close to Celtic. But I think he's coming back, and I think he has to be coming back to make an impact in Europe. I can't see the logic in it for him, unless he was, sunshine and rainbows in the land of milk and honey the last time. But from a professional standpoint, he has to come back to do something in Europe, because I don't think he's come back to win titles and win Scottish Cups. As much as that would be a brilliant byproduct, and we obviously need to win the league to get back into Europe. But I think progress and looking forward, and just looking where the rest of Europe going. That's where the money is. That's where the future of football is. So I think that's what Brendan will be setting his sights on.
Yeah, without a doubt. And we're going to look at the performance, the quality of the goals, and then individual performances with a view to saying, well, how do we line up on Saturday? Because I've said it before in relation to these friendly games. A testimonial match, obviously, in the past has been something of an exhibition game. You've had guests playing, Charnley played for Celtic down in Manchester, and we've had Christian Daly, Jason McAteer playing for Celtic. Dalglish came back and played for Celtic in a Davy Provan testimonial. You've had all that kind of stuff. Alan Shearer being given a penalty for his testimonial in Newcastle. It was all a bit of a nonsense. Last night wasn't like that, John. There was a competitive streak to it because we needed that competitive game under our belts, didn't we?
Well, it was a proper game. I mean, I think maybe those testimonials took place later in the season, or when people are not looking to get cropped and stuff. That was an important game for us last night. There's a lot of decisions to be made here. Mm-hmm. And the manager is still trying to assess his squad, as we can see from the first and second half teams. And what it proved last night is he still has a lot of decisions to make. There are a lot of quandaries, and there's also a lot of those decisions may well be impacted and should be impacted by stuff that's going on behind the scenes that we do not know about. Because there is no point in playing someone who may well be out the door shortly. I don't agree with that sort of the Ange attitude where you keep on playing them right up until they walk out the door. If there is an able-bodied future prospect, you play them. And there is just no point in playing dead wood or guys that are going to be gone shortly. So there's some interesting ones there. And I thought last night there was an awful lot of guys who put their hand up and an awful lot of guys who put their hand right down. So it's going to make for an interesting chat today.
Yeah, it is, John, because it's like a game-to-game basis, you get the performances, and I was looking at a performance of Hatate over in Japan and thinking, right, he's ready to step up to this third season level where he takes it onto another platform. And then I've seen him against Wolves, and then again last night, I know he scored a cracking goal, but his passing has been all over the place in the last couple of games. He just wasn't keeping possession. I know the quality that he's got, John, but, these are important games, the Wolves in last night's games for prep.
But the thing that really makes Hatate situation stand out is how good Maeda and Kyogo have been. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't know if they've stepped up another level, but they have certainly brought peak performance to pre-season. They are playing tremendously well, and Hatate looks miles off it. Hatate, sorry, looks miles off it by comparison. So, you know, they're making him look bad, basically. They have stepped up, he has not. And, you know, in all those pre-season games, I mean, even last night, you know, that goal he scored came from a mistake by Bilbao. You know, he didn't create that. It wasn't a great pass or, you know, whatever. So that's not to say he can't do those things. We know he can. We know he's capable of being absolutely phenomenal. But what's been happening in the preseason so far is all the downsides of his game are being highlighted. Because right now, you know, you wouldn't trust him to hold your lunch money. Never mind, you know, hold on to the ball. He's basically, you know, he's losing the ball all over the place, and he's losing it in dangerous areas. He's trying the Hollywood pass time and time again when it's not on. But, you know, not only is it not on, he shouldn't even be thinking about it. You know, some of the passing, some of his decision making has been ridiculous. You know, so it's all, for some reason at the moment, you know, he is just making all the wrong choices and he doesn't look on it at all. And, you know, I suppose from Brendan's point of view, the opposite is happening with David Turnbull.
Yeah.
David Turnbull is playing exceptionally well, looks to be at his peak. And, you know, whether Hatate may do something brilliant or not, we cannot have a player who consistently loses the ball like that. It just it puts us in the back foot so badly. It exposes us in transition, which is the most dangerous time of the game. And, you know, he's leaving us wide open. Now, as I say, we could accept that before when the good was outweighing the bad, but at the moment, you know, it's not. So I think if he was to, for me, if he makes the starting 11, he's making it on past performance. He's not making it on current form.
Yeah, we spoke, John, about, you know, the not all the signings, but the first four who we know, you know, had been in the works for a while and have come in, and talking about players being starters or players coming in to bolster the squad. But all it takes is a few games like this, Patrick, for a player to jump the queue, if you like, because you can't continually play in such a manner. I mean, when he gave the ball away and it resulted in the goal, for example, and you're looking at Hatate, you think to yourself, the amount of ability that he's got. I mean, I am putting him on a platform here and saying he's going to take this to another level this season. But for some strange reason, and I'm hoping it's just taking him time to get going, the performances haven't been there. This will all be answered an hour before kickoff on Saturday as to what Brendan Rodgers makes of it. But I do want to talk about the quality of the goals, one of which, of course, came from Rio Hatate, and the other goals coming from Bernabe and Turnbull. And I want to speak about those other two players individually. What about the quality of the goals, though? Rodgers' side really are turning on the style when it comes to a lot of the attacking play, Patrick.
Yeah, definitely. I think, in my opinion, the second goal's the pick of the bunch. Three really great goals, obviously. You know, Hatate outside the box just places it in the corner. You know, it's a clever 1-2 between Turnbull and O'Reilly, and then they sort of let Bernabe in and he puts it through the keeper's legs. And then, you know, it's good play and a good cutback and an amazing finish by Turnbull for the third goal. And, you know, Turnbull's one of these guys that I think if Andrew's still at the club, I would be, you know, sort of waving him out the door. He'd be one of these players you think you're just not getting in the side, mate. But you know, obviously Rodgers' team is a lot more focused on passing and less, you know, less pressing, less running. Still, obviously has a role at top level professional football nowadays, but you don't need the whole 11 doing it. So, you know, Turnbull, you know, his quality's been shining through. He's been playing a lot this pre-season. I think he's been playing pretty well. And you know, after last night, I'd be tempted to start him ahead of Hatate in the midfield three against Ross County on Saturday. But you know, three phenomenal goals. Obviously, bit of a disaster first half. We conceded the two goals in the first half, both coming from mistakes. You know, I don't really fancy a Watt at right back anymore. I think that experiment has to end very quickly. But no, I can definitely see, you know, those two in particular, Turnbull and Bernabe, you know, really played themselves into the side this pre-season, and I would give them the jersey on Saturday.
Now, before we go through that, and we'll do it bit by bit, obviously, all the way through the team to see where we are, John, with performances, experiments, players playing out of position. I'm going to take a point from Jungle Lion. Jungle Lion has made this comment due to the fact that he's subscribed to the channel, which allows you to comment on the live stream if you want to do so. Get on the YouTube and get subscribing on there. It's all free, of course. Jungle Lion, yes, it was James Forrest's night, but in reality, he won't kick a ball much for Celtic this season. What is his role, John? What's Jamesy Forrest's role this season? I think, what is he, 33 games off hitting 500 competitive appearances for Celtic. You would expect him to hit that total, unless there's a disastrous injury-strewn season. He's going to be in and out the side, of course. What's his role for you?
Well, I mean, he's won 11 titles in, 13 years, so he can have any role he wants. He can sit in the corner and you can rub his head as you go out onto the park for good luck, for all I care. His record is unbelievable. Jungle Lion is, of course, right. I think we're all aware of that. We now have. I mean, we thought Abada was out the door, so we've got a team full of right wingers. So we've signed 2 right wing replacements already. So Jamesy, everyone being fully fit, I'd say Jamesy is already 4th choice. Is likely to be 4th choice because I want to develop the young fellas. That's where the future is for the club as well. To develop them, whether they turn out brilliantly for us or not, we need to give them a chance. Again, players don't develop and add value. We're a trading club. They don't get better if you don't play them. So we've got to play these guys. We know what James offers. He might get some runs in the cup or what. So, but realistically, he's going to have a very limited role, and that's no disrespect to him. He looks competent still. I think he could probably do a good job at another club. Still, I just don't think it's going to be with us. However, loyalty should reward loyalty. He is a one-club man, effectively, you would want him around the place as long as possible. But I mean, that sort of sentimentality, that's just me being sentimental, and that sort of sentimentality can in fact erode morale, because there'll be guys there wanting more money and thinking, it's getting wasted on a guy who's not performing or isn't going to play many games. So it's difficult. You have to be careful to balance that sort of thing. So I wouldn't want to be overly sentimental. I would like to see James get some games, but we're short on the left. It was interesting to see Abada going left last night, and I actually thought he was good. He looked really good, but I think that's generally just because he's looking very sharp at the moment.
Yeah, he is. He is, John.
And he's looking so sharp, in fact, you wouldn't want him to be an understudy to Maeda, even if that's very plausible. But it's great to have that flexibility. But at the moment, 2 of the best players in the team are our wingers. Maeda and Abada are both looking really, really good. So James is on the back foot, I'm afraid. And Yang comes on and looks pretty competent, although he missed an absolute sitter, really. The ball from Bernabe was an absolute peach. Curling over around the top of the defence right onto him, and it was a hell of a miss, but early doors for the young fella. But as I say, I hope James is at the club as long as he wants to be at the club within reason.
People might think that I'm contradicting myself on this one, Patrick, because I'm looking at the fact that Jamesy Forrest is currently on 22 gongs at Celtic, isn't he? 22 honours, and that's the same as Scott Brown, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. Just behind him, I think, on 20 is Callum McGregor, and the only players in front of them is Billy McNeil on 23 honours and Bobby Lennox on an incredible 25, the most decorated player in Celtic's history. However, there is an opportunity there for Jamesy Forrest to jump up to 25 this season if we replicate what we did last term. And people might say to me, well, you can't be sentimental with James if you're not going to be sentimental with other players, because I've made it pretty clear, if you don't contribute at Celtic, I don't think you should be there. James McCarthy's the example I use. The two goalies, both of whom played last night, they've not really been contributing. 75 games in 5 years for Scott Bain, 2 games in a season for Siegrist. So, on the one hand, I say if you don't contribute, you shouldn't be here. But on the other hand, I look at Forrest and I think, what does he bring to this? And I think he does bring, as well as the bags of experience, I think he could bring on a player like, let's say, Yang. He's just come into the club. I don't think Yang's going to be looking at Abada, in terms of taking him under his wing as such. He might look at him as a player and that might inspire him. But I would expect Forrest to do a bit of work in that respect, Patrick, to allow a young player to come in and to kind of mentor them through maybe the first season, as Beaton did with Abada, obviously different positions. But there's a lot to be taken from having a player like Forrest at the club, but he needs to contribute as well. He needs to get to, I would say, 30 games, 35 games this season. Not all starts, obviously.
Yeah, I'd agree. It's very important to have guys like that, sort of around Lennoxtown, around Celtic Park, guiding young players and, handing out sort of bits of advice. But, at the same time, if you're paying these guys, I imagine, with his extension he got last summer, he's probably still on, 15 grand a week, thereabouts. So that's a lot of money for Celtic to shell out in a year for a guy who, if he's not playing, he's not scoring, just giving out advice. But I think he scored 5 or 6 goals last season. I think one of them was a hat trick. Obviously since COVID, his career's not been quite the same as what it was before COVID. Before COVID, he was, I think our second top goal scorer 3 years in a row or something. Obviously 10, 15 assists every season as well. So contributed massively to the quadruple treble. Really fast player. Obviously, as he's getting older, that's going to be less so as well. But I think, one thing, and I think we've spoken about it on this show almost weekly for the past 3-4 months, is the UEFA homegrown quota. I think you need 4 from your club and 4 from other clubs in your league or something like that. So you need 8 Scottish players, and it really is becoming quite the conundrum for us because, you look at guys like Callum McGregor, Greg Taylor, and then after that, you really are looking at guys like Forrest, Ralston, Scott Bain, even guys like Mikey Johnson. And obviously, burning through young players is obviously what we need to be doing to meet this quota because, you're left with a sort of financial take on it where are you better off keeping James Forrest around on, say, 15 grand a week or trying to get a Scottish player who isn't even that good, who you're going to have to spend money on, who you're going to have to pay the wages for just to meet this quota. So I think it's a good bit of business to keep James around. As John said, he's contributed so much that, as long as he's contributing still, he should be allowed to stay at the club. I can't see him leaving. If I'm being honest, I think he's got 2 years left. I think he'll probably retire and take up a coaching role. If I was to guess, I can't really see him playing for another team. And he's been a great servant. And I was looking there. I think his top 10 appearances. Number 10 has got 588. I'm not sure he'll get there. Callum McGregor might get there, but I'm not sure he'll get there. He'll probably beat Callum McGregor over the line for the 26 Major of Honours. He'll probably, for maybe a season or two, hold that record. But I think Cal Macquay's 5-year deal is probably going to be all conquering. But 2 amazing servants to the club and 2 fantastic players in their day.
It's sensational, really, John, when you consider that within the realms of 20 plus honours, you've got players like Scott Brown, who just recently left Celtic. You've got Forrest and McGregor, and it's an indication, really, of that domination we've enjoyed in recent times, isn't it?
Well, yeah. I mean, you have to factor in that exact point. We have been extremely dominant, and especially in the last 13 years or so. I mean, there is a reason for that as well. We have to acknowledge that reason. So, the team that would have been our main competitors was liquidated and then come back as version 2. It took them a while to do that. So we didn't have them really to compete with or worry about. So obviously there was going to be a period there where we were more likely to win than not. So that said, still needs to be done. You still need to beat everything that's in front of you. It's not the fault of the players, the manager, or any of the executive team or anything like that another club went bust. So all you can do is win and keep on winning. And, as we've noticed, since that particular club, version 2, has returned, it hasn't really changed anything. You know what I mean? We've just carried on. We've just carried on winning. So, should that be a caveat? Maybe not. I don't think so. I think it's just that the nature of the cycle of football. Sometimes certain clubs are dominant for a period. I think we're going to continue this domination. I cannot see, certainly, off the field, us imploding, which is still a likelihood for other people. So I think we continue this domination. And again, I think Brendan Rodgers probably thinks that as well. I think that's why he's back at the club. And because it gives him a platform, a stable platform, to go on and try and make progress in Europe.
This earlier on, Patrick was talking about the challenge, if you like, from elsewhere. And you also spoke about, Aberdeen and Hearts. I would maybe throw Hibs into that as well, into that equation. Last season, what you were seeing is managerial changes for all those clubs. And quite frankly, looking at where they are right now, the only club I would be at this stage confident in not changing their manager, Patrick, would probably be Aberdeen, based on how well Barry Robson did at the end of the season. You would expect him to do pretty well this season as well. But you look at Hibs, you think to yourself, is Johnson really going to see out the season? You look at the situation at Hearts, do they even know who the manager is between the two of them? And then obviously Dundee United, who I always regarded as a strong side, probably due to, in fact, definitely due to Matt Era growing up and they were a strong side. I mean, they're just a basket case as well. So all these other clubs don't seem to have their backyard in order. And Celtic obviously are just looking after their own situation with regards to recruitment, finance, and everything else. One thing I need to bring up as well, Tony Cassidy mentions it, nice team, athletic club. And there has been this friendship, gathering pace over the last few years, Patrick. I know that we did play a friendly match against them over there when Neil Lennon was in charge first time round. We wore the all lime green kit. You'll remember Freddie Lundberg played that night. In fact, Tony Stokes was the captain that night. It was a while ago, Patrick. But obviously that friendship has developed, and there was the honour of 2019 when the One Club Man Award was presented, obviously, to Billy McNeill. And last night, representatives of the club laid down flowers at the statue at Celtic Park. It looks as though we have a friend for life here. This is a club, this is a friendship that both the fans and the club are going to continue.
Yeah, lovely club. It's actually incredible, what they're doing in Spanish football. The fact that they only pick players from that Basque region and they're still able to compete at like the top end of Spanish football. It's an absolute, it's almost a miracle. What the club's able to do. Obviously, it really sort of, as you say, sort of sprouted in 2019 when they honoured Billy McNeill, and unfortunately he passed away, I think, only a few weeks later. But it's a fantastic friendship to have. It's a fantastic club. That they had their fans in the home end in some areas, and the away fans were they were jumping about celebrating Celtic goals and stuff. So it's a the third Celtic goal anyway. So it's a fantastic club, fantastic friendship, and delighted. I don't think we've ever played them competitively. I know my dad always talks about playing Real Sociedad back in the day, and I think they were always quite surprised when Celtic, I think they clapped them and flew the Basque flag during a pretty controversial period of time. My dad always tells me that story. So it'd be good to get them competitively and see how we do. If we play like we did in the first half in a European fixture this season, I think we're going to end up 5-0 down at half time. But fantastic club, fantastic night last night, and hope they do well in Spain next season.
Your dad must be in his 20s by now, Patrick, no?
Mid-20s, John.
He plays more football than I do, so he's probably still fitter.
He's doing all right. He's probably younger than me. But see, the thing with these clubs, John, is often it's the clubs that create that friendship and that gathers momentum, and sometimes it's the fans. And I'm thinking obviously of St. Pauli as well over in Germany and how that developed. It's a great story. Sometimes it's due to having a similar state of mind politically in relation to the two fan bases or the groups of fans who were able to link up. But it takes me on to another point, and I want to hear your thoughts on it, John, because obviously you're over in Ireland, and Celtic visited the Aviva just last week to play Wolves. 28,000 at the game. There's been a lot of talk about, the costings of the tickets, the fact that I think it was only announced at that venue 19 days before the game was played. But Celtic have been named in the top 50 global football brands. However, there's a sense that we could do even more. We could engage more. We could build that a lot better in places like Ireland. And obviously, on top of that, places like America, Australia and Japan. What's your take on it, John?
Yeah, well, the first thing is Bilbao, just to go back to that point, Bilbao are a team really to be admired greatly. They only allow the Basque players, as Patrick said, and they're only one of 3 teams never to be relegated from La Liga. They have set out that benchmark, so they clearly care far more about their club's community values than they do about the pursuit of footballing success. So for me, that's to be greatly admired. I'd like to think our club shares similar values, but we do share the similar values, I think, in terms of being a sort of larger community club, but we definitely don't share the same value in saying that we'll sacrifice all success for that. So for me, they're to be greatly admired. In terms of the branding of the club and going forward, 28,000 was a pretty decent turnout given the fact that there was only a few weeks' notice or a couple of weeks' notice, and the All-Ireland final was the next day, which made it very, very difficult to get. You weren't staying in Dublin; they were all booked out everywhere. If you were staying somewhere, it probably wasn't in Dublin. It made transport very difficult. It made everywhere sort of congested. It made the prices all through the roof. So it was pretty decent, but I don't think there's anywhere near enough done, especially in relation to Ireland. Not anywhere near enough. And I've said this previously. Since the Premiership, the English Premiership took off, unless the family of young people coming up have a Celtic connection, they are not Celtic supporters, and they're not going to be. They're Man United, Liverpool, Arsenal. They're all EPL. They're not watching our game, and nor are they interested in it. So, if we don't want to lose, basically, we just age out. In Ireland, then we need to do far, far more. And I think it is just taken for granted. We have a huge number of travelling fans and so on. A lot, there's obviously, I think there's a lot more in the north potentially. The south is a much larger population, but in terms of the number of travelling fans, I'd say there's an awful lot from the north. So, in the south, there's just, GA, remember, is extremely strong here as well. And a lot of kids coming up are participating in that constantly. So it makes it difficult, then to get to travel and watch games and so on. The availability of easier ways to watch the games is paramount, I think. So I think Celtic have a real job of work to do, and I don't think perhaps that they appreciate how important that is at the moment, and how important it could be down the line. Because I think it is, it will gradually just drop off. You know, it's very well to claim Irish roots, but if you don't do anything about it, you know, if you don't acknowledge the fans, if you don't do anything to go and play for it, it should be compulsory to play at least one pre-season game there. You know,
totally agree with that.
So, you know, it should be absolutely compulsory, and there should be exhibition games, and they should be sending the B team over, or, you know, whatever it is. But there should be far more effort. And what harm does it do is to try and build much closer relationships with lots of League of Ireland clubs. You never know what quality of players you might get. You know, like, I just think it's much like, and Liam would go on about the Japanese end of things as well. I think there is much, much more to be done.
Yeah, I mean, even wee things like going up on a Monday morning to Celtic Park to film A Wander Around Paradise is great. Obviously, it's getting me my 10 or 15 minutes exercise first thing on a Monday morning, Patrick, which is really important when you get to my age. But also, you're taking a walk around, and it's a different place. It's a different environment when there's nobody there. Like when it's not match day, but you still get the same vibe. I mean, on Monday there, I'm thinking about the following night's game and what it's going to be like. And there's a special feeling in and around Celtic Park regardless. But there's loads around that stadium. You think to yourself, Patrick, you know, even just the big breeze block walls, you know, underneath the old jungle, all the way down there, fill them with history, because that stadium is visited so often, every single day of the week, 365 days of the year, by people from all over the world. Just last Monday, there was a couple of Americans waiting outside the superstore for it to open. Had a wee chat with them as well. But people are visiting the stadium all the time. That wander around Paradise should tell you all about the history. You know, you could have murals on the wall. Look at some of the beautiful murals in Glasgow city centre, Patrick. Imagine having, you know, the story all the way around Celtic Park. So there's loads of suggestions we can make to you know, celebrate the history, but continually build, though, you know, the relationships with people who are important to the club.
Definitely. And you look at underneath the concourse where the standing section is, you've got fan painted murals of, you know, legends like Willie Maley, Tommy Burns, Jock Stein, all these guys, Henrik, Jimmy Johnson. I mean, and it's absolutely beautiful. And I know the home kit is allegedly inspired by the glass window that used to be above the door. It's not. The ones underneath the concourse definitely are, because it's the same colour and the same pattern. The home top is inspired by, from what I can see, a lizard. It's lizard skin, our home top this year.
I hope it's not a subliminal. It's not a subliminal message, is it, Patrick?
I know. God, I can only imagine the conspiracy theorists will be on us. But no, yeah, I think this has to be. I'm going to say it has to be fan led, but obviously you need the club's, you know, sort of like permission and assurances to do stuff like that. But I think that the club should get that permission and then invite fans to, not graffiti, but sort of paint and sort of decorate outside the ground. I mean, I think we've got two massive car parks either end of the ground, and obviously we're used to park cars. But I think there was talk of a fan zone. I want to say it's the Lisbon Lions stands. I get the stand names mixed up. But there was talk of a fan zone and nothing's really happening. The Celtic Way is wonderful. It's a fantastic sort of facility to have in front of the stadium. But as you say, there's a lot more room for artwork. And I think John's spot on. I think we should play at least one pre-season game every season, if not every second season. And you know, have Irish teams at Celtic Park. I mean, we played Cliftonville in the Champions League, I think 10 years ago now. So it's good to have teams, and you know, obviously a lot of Celtic fans in the north as well. But you know, I think we should be making the trip. And you know, as you say, 28,000. You know, people might think, you know, 50,000 seater stadium, it's half empty. But as you say, it was only 13, 14 days notice. I didn't go. I don't know what the price of the ticket was, but as John says, you know, All Ireland final the next day. Dublin isn't the cheapest place to go for a night, so I think we've done really, really well, and it's important to keep that connection strong.
Yeah, let's keep building it, you know. 1,000 strong on the live stream. Thanks, everybody, for getting involved. It's always an absolute pleasure to get on here at 12:30 of an afternoon and engage with those who like to talk about Celtic for an hour every day. Stephen Donnelly's one of them. You're commenting on the YouTube. Afternoon all. Enjoyed the game last night. Well, the second half performance. Anyway, yes, Stephen, it was definitely an increased tempo. There were some some great performances, I felt, in the second half. And let's talk a wee bit about that with a view, Patrick, to Saturday's game, the curtain raiser. We'll start off at the back, shall we? Joe Hart didn't make an appearance last night. Siegrist and Bain got a half each. Where are we with the goalkeeper? Up to this point, I've been saying Hart's still the number one, but I'm not happy with the numbers 2 and 3. We need to get in another goalkeeper. Where are you with regards to the goal? I'll start with yourself, Patrick.
I don't want to sound greedy, but I'm not really happy with any of them. I've never really been a big fan of Scott Bain. Siegrist seems to be a puzzle, a bit of a conundrum. And Joe Hart, as we keep on saying, he's okay. He's a lovable guy. He's a great shot stopper. Can't really save a penalty. No use with the ball at his feet. Prone to a mistake, and he's only getting older. I think he's 36, I want to say. So I've been really excited by the Livakovic thing. A bit like Tierney, it's one that isn't going away. But to answer your question, I don't want to base it off 45 minutes. I'd be tempted to go with Scott Bain at the weekend, and a bit controversial, I'd go with Bernabe at left back, and then Carter Vickers, Starfelt, and Ralston for the defence.
You're throwing the controversy. That is also after you've single-handedly set up the David Icke CSC as well, Patrick, with regard to your lizard comments as well. John, we've got the full back five from Patrick. I mean, Bernabe, listen, I think in the pre-season, even in the little bits of content we've seen at Portimonense, he set up a goal, didn't he? He set up the goal for, I think it was Summers. It was crossed in by Vata, but he got the secondary assist. He's looked really, I don't know, he seems a wee bit more natural to the position, John. Is that because it's a slightly different way of implementing the left back? Where are you with the defence? Patrick's given us his back five.
I think Patrick's right to be concerned about the goalkeeper position. I think everyone is. And I'm even more concerned now because based on what we've seen so far, I agree that Bain should be in ahead of Hart. Hart has had a shocker in near every game. He's had at least one mistake, serious mistake, in near everything that we've seen so far. So Bain looked really assured last night. And I think that's worrying in terms of, if we're saying Scott Bain's our top man, that's a bit of a concern, but he currently is on form. Yet I hate to play players based on how they played last year or all the rest of it, because it's deeply unfair. You're either playing well now or you're not. You have to play the foreign players. And as for Bernabe, the difficult thing is, Taylor, for instance, has been poor up to this point, but he played pretty well last night. But then Bernabe came on and added a whole different dimension of just, swashbuckling attack. And he was showboating at one point. He was doing big dummies in the middle of the field. He was running riot. So if you give him space, he's tremendous. How effective is he in the confines of, against Ross County, against the Park bus? How effective is he? Because there is no space. So do you need someone who plays the system much better, like Taylor, who can make a better pass through and will just be more consistent in his performance? I think most managers probably default to conservative. So I think until such times as Bernabe has proven that he can defend against guys who are going to target him because they know his defence is weak, then we're going to see Taylor in position until such times as we get a new left back, which I'm also hoping we do. Goalkeeper and left back are two of the positions we're hoping someone comes in to improve on. Carter Vickers, I noticed he was getting really lauded last night, and he did in his own individual performance. Most of it was excellent. I actually felt Carter Vickers was responsible for putting Iwata under pressure. He was taking a long time to look up and assess his options, and then dumping the ball off to Iwata, who clearly wasn't fit, to deal with that sort of ball. Iwata is not a right back. Nearly his entire career has either been centre back or defensive midfield. At the senior level, he's played right back, I think, twice. So he played it a lot when he was a kid, but he hasn't played it. I think in the J1, he played it maybe twice. So he's not a natural in that position, and he doesn't look like a natural in that position. So putting him under pressure, playing an out ball, when you're being closed down, I thought Carter Vickers actually put him in difficulties a couple of times. So but no one's going to dispute Carter Vickers as well. Actually, I'll tell you, someone on my Twitter, and this might be a completely exclusive, the only exclusive opinion on a player I've ever heard, was absolutely convinced that Starfelt was significantly better than Carter Vickers. And I think that may be a one-man opinion. I've heard some, interesting debates at times, but that's one that I just think that's just one guy with a very significantly large, actual Celtic following on Twitter. But I was taken aback by that one. Anyway, whether we're playing Starfelt really depends to me on those machinations about what's happening. Is his agent trying to get him out the door? Is he trying to get out the door? Or is it a genuine fight for that position along with Big Rocky? Because if it is at the moment, I think neither of them have played particularly, what have they done, 45 minutes apiece with him and Rocky. So you would need to put Starfelt in there. I think he's just more up to speed. The boy, now Rocky, he played well last night. His distribution was excellent, which I was expecting because I had seen the clips of him, and his distribution did look excellent. He was beaten for a couple of headers, so I would be having Starfelt in there unless Starfelt's going to be out the door, in which case there's no point playing him. We just need to play the boy Rocky, and that's the end of it. But it's an interesting one. I would definitely, no question, I'd play Ralston in front of Iwata. Absolutely no question. And I think Tony needs a run of games because he still looks a bit rusty. I think he needs to play himself back into form. But he's definitely our only realistic right back at the moment for me.
Yeah, there's a lot there. I'm going to run through my five at the back as well. Some great comments coming in, John, in relation to it. Sometimes I think people throw out a contrary opinion just to get a bit of traction on Twitter, by the way, John. It could be one of their ones. John Hill, pre-season should involve Celtic playing in Ireland, different cities. Yeah, absolutely. Why not? And we've got Grant Liddell coming in here as well. Have Celtic ever played Napoli? Just from memory, we did play them in a pre-season friendly in the 1990s, Grant. We definitely did play Napoli over, was it in Ireland, actually? I'd need to check that. But we definitely did play Napoli back in the day. I remember going through Neely Mockin's jersey collection, and he had swapped the jersey with the Napoli kitman, and it was in the bag as well. Happy Suicidal. Thiago and Noroki are definitely competing for first 11 places. Well, we'll be talking about that. I think particularly Home played really well last night. I thought he put a good account of himself across. And Ian Laurie, has Patrick been playing Ozzy Osbourne records backwards? You can try it with some of the songs on the White Album first, Patrick. I know if you're anything like Declan, you'll like the Beatles for the Paul is Dead messages that are on there as well. And Alan Woods, right on my street, my era, Home Top is inspired by the 80s sci-fi series V. John, you remember that?
I loved that show.
Aye.
And it was actually rebooted not so long ago.
Oh, was it?
Yeah. It was in, I can't remember if it was late 2000s or into the teens, but it was rebooted. They had, I think, one or two series of it. It was actually a good show.
I'm going to seek it out. It was Robert England who was more famous for playing Freddy Krueger. You never know what the Acsom Bulletin is going to throw up, but you started it, Patrick. Patrick started it by saying that the Green Hoops were inspired by the lizard people. Right, so back five for me. I'm going to go for Joe Hart. So I think I'm disagreeing with the pair of yous there. I'm going to go for Joe Hart. Yeah. I think Siegrist at the time seemed like the right choice to bring in a goalkeeper for a backup. A year down the line, he's played 2 games, even last night, a wee bit rusty. Although the misplaced pass that he made, I'll come back to this. I think that defensive area of the midfield was really poor in the first half. It just did not cover the back four at all. It was really poor. It was the wrong choice, of course. We never realised until the game kicked off that Kwon didn't seem comfortable in there. McGregor then reverted back to his usual role, and then obviously the pair of them were hooked at half-time. I'm going to start with Hart. I am playing it a bit safe here, I've got to say. Right back, I would always go with the player. Like you say, John, I would always go with the player who's natural to the position. Awata, for me, looks really comfortable defensive mid. I don't like him at centre-half. I don't like him at right back as much as I like a natural player like Tony. And like you said, Tony needs that run of games. He had an injury last season, never quite got back up to pace, up to speed. But there was a few occasions last night where he's doing his overlaps and he's linking up with the right winger. And I'm thinking that's the Tony of old, but he needs the games to get up to there. Left back, I'm tempted. I think Bernaby's done well. He's started to play himself into the thought process. I'm going to play it safe and stick with Greg Taylor at this moment in time. But I think what Bernaby's done is he's shown you that, he's maybe a wee bit closer to a first-team jersey than he was last season. But I agree with John again. Goalkeeper and left back, two positions I want to strengthen. And John, it would really disappoint me if Starfelt is on his way out, because I just feel that we brought in Novroski and we want that challenge for that jersey. It would really disappoint me if one of them was to leave. And of course, Carter Vickers back last night. You could see his frustration a few times because he wasn't getting the cover. He wasn't being protected by his two defensive mids in the first half. Back in the game, throwing himself into challenges. Welcome back, the big fella. So, no, a great amount of disagreement, but I would go Hart, Ralston, Taylor, Starfelt and Carter Vickers. That's how I would start.
Yeah. It's interesting though, isn't it, that he wasn't getting that cover despite the fact we did have effectively a double pivot, and he got the cover when we started playing just simply far more attacking football. Because then they were on the back foot. And with the extra defensive players, you're looking at, effectively inviting them onto you. Now, what I would say is Kwon, he really illustrated how small our team is, because he stood out so much.
He did.
Because he's 6'3", and he looked like a giant. It just shows you how small our team is. But I was disappointed for the boy. But that's a massive step up. He's been playing in, sort of K2. He's been playing in the Korean second division, and he's just all of a sudden he's now up to playing sort of La Liga standard teams. In his first game, and he was given a real prominent role in that. So he didn't look up to speed at all, but clearly has all the physical attributes that you'd want. You could see what he was trying to do a lot of the time. It just wasn't coming off from. I'm prepared absolutely to give him a bye ball because he's just settling in. So I think he looks like he could be tremendous because he's got that dig. He looked as if he could have a decent pass on him. He just didn't have a great game, and that's fine. Like it's pre-season, that's unfortunate. But I was very interested in. Again, here's a question for you. I know we might get there if we don't run out of time. So just before we run out of time, just going to ask you, what position does O play?
I'll tell you, last night, John, when he was coming deep and he was linking play up, and there was a cross-field pass that he made to Yang, which was the pass of the night. And you're thinking to yourself, because we have played him as a figurehead, the sole striker, the lone striker. But last night, that's probably the most impressed I've been with him last night. He seemed to be playing a wee bit deeper.
I mean, he was great, but he wasn't the striker.
You're right.
He was. I don't know. It was almost like a 10 role. Almost, he was playing. He was coming very deep to the detriment of the team, to be honest, because we didn't have anyone up there. But it might have been to the detriment of the team to the extent we didn't have a striker. But in terms of the actual play itself, I mean, he played really, really well. But that's not his job.
Where was he playing? Exactly.
We want him in the team. He was playing in the midfield. Or he was playing on the wing. Now, he was a winger, before we got him. He had played primarily, I think, on the wing. So he was a winger. So maybe that's something to look at. He doesn't look fast, though, at all. But he physically held off a boy last night who was faster than him and managed to win the corner. So, he just looks really very good. He's obviously got a range of passing on him. He's strong. He gets in good positions, but he doesn't get in good positions, between the goals. So Yeah, that said, he did. He got on to, it was Ralston's, wasn't it, for the third goal? So he got onto Ralston's cross, cut it back for Turnbull. But he needs to be playing far more advanced, and I think it needs to be more defined for him as to where he should be playing. Because if we're going to play on the counter attack, you can't play on the counter attack unless you've got an outball and a realistic target, to which I think he'll be very good. So it's sort of confusing. He looks to be a good player. I just don't know if he's a great striker at this point.
Mm-hmm. But his change, his performance last night, I'm thinking he might be one of the players, John, that you see the version 2 in the second season. I think we've seen a wee bit of that with O'Reilly, and we've seen a wee bit of it with Hatate. And we might see something similar with a player like under the watchful eye, Brendan Rodgers. There was moments in the game where, like you say, he was picking the ball up in the midfield, taking it on, creating space. That pass was phenomenal. And he was so unselfish. I expected him to try and get a shot when Ralston played him in. He was so unselfish, and that cut back to Turnbull was sensational. Brilliant bit of play. Let's talk about the midfield then, because we had a really good discussion a few weeks ago, John, about the strongest mid, and you did a vote, you did a poll on your Twitter page and things like that. Has that changed for you, John? What's the starting three on Saturday for you?
Well, I think O'Reilly showed last night that he should be playing. I think Callum had, again, an off night. I think the game was sort of passing him by just because of that switch in positions. It didn't really work out for him. But we're not going to drop Callum. So Callum will play. O'Reilly put his hand up for me. And as it stands right now, I'd play Turnbull and not Hatate.
See, this is going to be a difficult choice, John, isn't it? I thought you're right. See, if it was just on form, I think young Home was very good last night. I thought Turnbull for the last couple of games has, like you say, claimed his place. The two that I wouldn't argue with is McGregor and O'Reilly. But that third jersey, is it up for grabs for you, Patrick?
For the season, it definitely is. I think for Saturday, I'm giving it to Turnbull. I'm agreeing with John. But I agree with you as well. Home, I thought, looked very good in that second half. And if you're going in form alone, you're dropping Callum McGregor. But we all know that's not going to happen. So I'd be going with McGregor, O'Reilly and Turnbull as well.
Yeah, there we go. Hatate, the guy that I'm putting on a pedestal here. And we know he's got undoubted talent. Will he start against Ross County? We shall see. And up top, again, I'm taking it for granted because this is the way I would start. I thought Yang put in a really good performance. I'm looking forward to seeing more of him. I would start with Abada on the right, Maeda on the left, Kyogo through the middle. John, what about yourself?
Yeah, and I thought it was interesting in Yang's, was it the first game, was it the Wolves game? I think, he was trying to do a couple of things, but at one point just got bounced straight off the ball, lost the ball, and then just got bounced straight off it. I think he will take some time to find his feet, but he looks to have the quality. He looks pretty good so far. But again, there's no question. The front three is literally no question for me at this point. Maeda has been super, just really excellent, and showing far more to his game, I think, than he showed last year. Kyogo has been incredibly sharp. He looks like even when Kyogo's dropping deep, he's playing some really good football. Mm-hmm. Abada looks tremendously sharp and fit and aggressive, and looks to have an incredible appetite for it at the moment. He's firing on all cylinders. So, for me, the front three is an absolute given. It's the only area of the team that I don't think there's any dispute about. But, again, that said, it's going to be fascinating to see if Abada, if he can still produce that when he comes up against the park bus that we always come up against.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, a big kind of feature of the play is being able to get in behind the back line, John, in this pre-season. And you do ask yourself the question, because Malcolm Mackay has got to do that. That's what he's got to do, or we could beat them 5 or 6-0. We showed it last season. We can dismantle teams 9-0, 6-0. And that's what we can do if they don't defend. So yes, how will he be affected by that? And how will Brendan Rodgers use the wingers differently to the way Ange Postecoglou used his wingers. Patrick McGilp, give me your forward line for Saturday as well.
I'm going to be really boring and agree with the both of you. Abada, Kyogo, and Maeda. I think all three have been phenomenal in pre-season. Look really sharp. I agree with John actually. Kyogo looks a lot better on the ball. Looks a lot better sort of dropping back. Under Ange, he was largely staying in the penalty box and score goals, and he was obviously really good at that. His movement was incredible, and his movement is still incredible, and he's still really, really quick. Great at pressing defenders and goalkeepers. But I thought in the Wolves game on Saturday in particular, he looked really quite good in the ball, and hopefully that's something that Brendan's working on, because we've lost a guy in Jota who was really good in the ball, and I didn't think Kyogo, Abada, and Maeda, very quick, very good at scoring goals, very good at setting each other up. I didn't think we were ball carriers, and I thought that we were maybe missing something, but all is looking very well so far. Players are looking top form, and I was thinking last night it's exactly 7 weeks until our first Champions League match day. So 7 weeks to get prepared, and obviously big games before that. A big game on Saturday, a big game beginning of September. But that'd be my front three: Kyogo, Maeda, Abada.
No many disagreements today, John. It's disappointing for a Wednesday.
Well, I mean, it's interesting. I was thinking back to if you remember the film Moneyball, and they sold their best player by a country mile, and the scouts just wanted to replace him with a similar quality guy. They just didn't have the money to do it, and so they recreated him in the sum of his parts. So they recreated all the bits and pieces that he could do, and they recreated them in the whole of the team by recruiting a whole load of guys that could do, one thing that he could do or another thing that he could do. So you just wonder if we're going to be able to do that with Jota. Now, I'm hoping, though, I still hope that we're going to have more sort of obvious first-team picks coming in, and I hold out hope that that's the case before it matters. So we only got CCV and Jota on the last day of the season, didn't we? Before, or certainly CCV was the last day of the season. But guys like that, those deals, those loan deals, where we get to see them for as well, loan with an option to buy, I'm happy all day with that.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be interesting. And that Tierney rumour is not going away. Initially, it would only be as a loan, and then there might be some jiggery pokery about an option to buy, but it's still not going away. And I think Brendan might be keen to, as Patrick said right at the start, get the band back together. So, we'll see what happens. But, there's a lot of exciting new players coming in there. But the thing about it is, exciting at what level? Because they're still going to have to bed in.
Mm-hmm.
They're still going to have to find their feet. We're still going to have to find a formation. And we're doing all this while we want to be competitive in the Champions League, not just trying to find our feet in the SPFL. So, I would prefer to see a goalkeeper, right back, and a midfielder at the very least coming in to shore us up.
Well, Kieran Tierney, I wonder if he would suit the lizard strip, Patrick. We shall wait and see. Corvo, NUFC, Abada, when he came on, looked sharp. He will be a unreal player. I think so. I do. I think this is the season for Abada to really shine. I think he's got the right coach to do that as well. Paul McQuaid, he still thinks we're well short of quality for Europe. Well, only 7 weeks to go, Paul. And hopefully a few bodies in the door before the transfer window slams shut. Mo Sislak likes the idea of the murals around the stadium. Perfect. I'm happy to paint one. Not sure how it will turn out like. And Ian Laurie, Ferguson, his bonnet should be standing out the front. Listen, I think there's an argument for quite a few figures in the club's history. John Thompson, for example, and Jimmy McGrory. Yeah. These types of players. It would be great to see some kind of lasting tribute outside the stadium, John, for guys like that.
Yeah, I mean, how expensive is it to throw up a statue of these guys? It's not. There should be. There are so many important figures in our history. That there should definitely be statues or tributes or similar to so many of these guys. I'm not biased and I'm not saying who it should be, and I definitely wouldn't want to imply, but there should definitely be for some of these people there should be a lot more done. Now, I know that they were sort of hesitant to do the Lisbon Lions thing because they don't want to make the club entirely about the Lisbon Lions and all that, and I can understand that. But again, even the stuff they had up around the banners they had up around the stadium before with the players on them were excellent, and now they've just reverted to sort of Celtic branding.
Yeah, kind of corporate, John. It looks corporate, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, no, I didn't like them taking those down. I thought those banners were fantastic, and they explained a lot about the legends of the club. Obviously I'm biased, because some of them come down. There was a couple that I particularly liked, so I'm biased. But look, the club could do a lot more. It's just about focus and money, and everyone's got jobs to do, and it's finding the time and getting the permission and all the rest of it. But there could be a lot more done. And as you say, right at the second, Paul John, the stadium should be a destination. I mean, it's one of the most visited stadiums in the UK already, but it's not set up like that. There should be a cafe there that's open all the time. There should be access to that all the time. There should be, wee interactive things all around it. There should be things for kids to do. There should be a reason to take people there. And they certainly could be. And it wouldn't be. We already own the land. It's not as if it would be a big investment. I think the club can do an awful lot more right on its own doorstep.
No, definitely. And, we'll keep banging on about it on A Celtic State of Mind, John. Creative ideas are always welcome. And if we're ever, where is the hotel? I can see Derek asking that question as well. There's loads we could do with that land. And if we ever get the opportunity to pass the ideas onto the club, then we'll certainly do it. Listen, it's been an absolute pleasure. Well over 1,000 on the live stream this afternoon, gentlemen, which is fantastic. Thank you very much for getting involved. You'll never get to like this jersey if you keep calling it the Lizard Strip. You're right. Tobago Street Police Station CSC. I still want to know how many members are there in the Tobago Street Police Station CSC. Honestly, I want a polo shirt. I want the full shebang on your CSC. You're right. You're absolutely right. It does look better in a live setting. It does, but that's probably because my eyesight's so bad that I can't see the lizard shape and design of the hoops. Thanks everybody for getting involved. We're doing a wee gig in 3.5 weeks' time. There's only 40 tickets available. It's Charlie Mulgrew and Aidan McGeady. And what we're doing at the moment as well is we're collecting up Celtic jerseys, replica jerseys. We're getting them signed with all these ex-Celts, all these figures that we are privileged to be in the presence of from time to time. And then once the jersey's filled up, we're going to be auctioning them off for charity, and at the moment we are supporting Jamie Tierney. The link is underneath the video, and also we are also raising funds for the birthplace of the club, St Mary's, as well. So listen, if you've got any other ideas of fundraising, etc., pass them our way. All that's left for me to say is once again, Patrick McGill and John Hughes, thank you for joining me on A Celtic State of Mind.